Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the micro podcast on podcasting. And today's episode, number 4, is all about the art of the podcast interview. Now, I've been doing interviews for, for well over 20 years. For about 20 years, I've been doing it in broadcast journalism on air, on public radio. And for the last 5 years, I've been doing it in podcasts. But before that, I was actually a print journalist and I would do celebrity interviews. So I've been doing this for many, many years. And what I'm going to be doing today is just giving you some tips and some ideas on how you can create the perfect podcast interview. Now, number one, the first thing I teach my clients that I coach when it comes to doing an interview that grabs people's attention and keeps them with you throughout the show. Number one is that you need to know about your subject. If you have a guest, it really does help when you actually look up information on them. Don't just have somebody on because you think you're going to get more people to listen to you. Go to their website. If they have a book, flip through the book. If you don't read the whole thing, that's okay. Not everybody has a lot of time to do that, but you do need to know the basics. And what I always do, I never have a preset list of questions. The most important thing is I will have their name, their title, or how they would like to be introduced, and any website information or recent projects or books or services that they offer. The second thing that you want to consider when you're having an interview, you want to make sure that you actually let them talk. I know this sounds kind of simple and kind of basic, but did you know that there are podcasters out there that talk and talk and talk and talk and do a long introduction to their guest, and their guest gets to say like a couple words, and then it's time for the show to be over? Yeah, don't talk a lot. I know it sounds really simple, but please take in consideration that your guest is taking time out of their busy schedule to be on your show. You want to make sure that the listener is gaining some information. Either they're going to be inspired, or they're going to be motivated, or they're going to learn something that they didn't before. But if you don't allow your guest to talk, how is your listener going to find out that information? So please shorten your questions, shorten your introduction, get into the meat of it, and allow your special guest to shine. Allow them to talk. Now, this is a question if you're going to do live podcast shows or if you're going to pre-record. Personally, I like to pre-record because I like to do the editing. I like to take out those ums and uhs that myself, I'm guilty of, but also sometimes our guest is. And sometimes the guest might stumble or try and remember something and it doesn't come up right away. So that's why I like to pre-record all of my podcast shows, and I make sure that I take out any of those coughs or ums or uhs, or if there's something going on in the next room, I make sure that I edit it all, I shorten it up so that they sound amazing. And if it's a video version of the podcast, so that they also look amazing. It takes some time to do the editing, but I'll tell you, your guest is going to appreciate it because you're going to make them look and sound amazing. Now, if you really want to master the art of the interview for a podcast show, one thing you want to get into are stories. Stories are gold. Stories are why we go to the movies. Stories are what songs are made out of. And stories will keep your listeners engaged. Think of it this way. Star Wars, right? One of the best stories ever. Star Wars is an amazing story. And they've been able to franchise that puppy forever. They're able to do toys and t-shirts and sequels and prequels, and it's because it's all based on a good story. So if you have the ability to pull out that story from your guest, so in addition to doing research, in addition to actually allowing your guest to speak and you kind of taking a backseat and shutting up for a bit, okay, just a bit, but you want to have those golden moments. There might be a moment where your guest is really moved by something that they remember, and there's a pause. Don't try and fill that pause. You don't have to have sound going all the time. That dramatic pause, that moment where they reflect on something so powerful, something so special in their lives, that is going to be felt by your audience. Allow the pause. Allow that moment. That is drawing your audience in too, because they also want to know more about that very special moment. So don't feel like you have to fill in everything. Of course, at the end of your show, you want to thank your guest. You want to promote them as much as you can. Tell your audience about their book or their website or their business. Make sure that you definitely give your listeners a call to action. But you can master the art of the interview if you just use a few of these tips. All right, that's it for episode 4 in the series called The Micro Podcast on Podcasting. So until next time, I want to wish you the best of luck on creating your podcast. And thank you again for tuning in to The Micro Podcast on Podcasting.